The Kenyan savanna stretched endlessly before Marcus Chen's eyes, a sea of golden grass, swaying beneath the merciless afternoon sun. The American tourist wiped sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand, his Chicago Bears cap doing little to shield him from the relentless heat that seemed to press down on him like a physical weight. 3 hours had passed since he'd lost sight of his safari group. 3 hours that felt like an eternity in this vast, indifferent wilderness. Marcus had made a rookie mistake. During a photo stop at a watering hole near the Maasai Mara, he'd wandered just a bit too far, chasing the perfect shot of a family of elephants against the sunset. When he'd turned around, the Land Rovers were gone, disappeared into the acacia-dotted landscape as if they'd never existed. His phone had no signal. His water bottle was down to its last few ounces. And the sun, that brilliant African sun he'd admired so much in the safety of the vehicle, had transformed into his enemy. The landscape around him was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. Scattered acacia trees cast inadequate shadows across the burnt grass, their twisted branches reaching toward a cloudless sky like desperate fingers. In the distance, the blue-green silhouette of the Nguriman escarpment rose against the horizon, beautiful and unreachable. The air shimmered with heat, creating mirages that mocked his thirst, phantom pools of water that vanished as he approached, leaving only more dry earth and disappointment. Marcus's throat felt like sandpaper. His lips were cracked and bleeding. Every breath seemed to pull moisture from his body, leaving him more depleted than the last. He'd been walking west, or what he hoped was west, following the vague advice he'd heard the guide give about the camp's location. But the sun's position confused him now, and every direction looked the same. Endless grass, scattered trees, and the distant calls of animals he couldn't identify. The sounds of savannah had initially fascinated him. Now they filled him with dread. The distant roar of a lion sent his heart racing. The whooping call of hyenas made his skin crawl. Every rustle in the grass could be a snake. Every shadow could hide a predator. He was a stranger here, utterly out of his element, and the wilderness knew it. His safari boots, perfect for walking on groomed paths back home in suburban Illinois, were never meant for this kind of trek. Blisters had formed on both heels, and each step sent shooting pain up his legs. His khaki pants were torn from pushing through thorn bushes, and his arms bore long scratches that stung with each drop of sweat that ran over them. Marcus paused beneath an acacia tree, its shade offering minimal relief from the oppressive heat. He unscrewed his water bottle with shaking hands and stared at the remaining liquid, maybe 3 or 4 ounces at most. The rational part of his brain, the part that worked as a high school biology teacher, screamed at him to conserve it, to ration every drop. But his body screamed louder, demanding relief from the dehydration that was beginning to affect his thinking. He allowed himself 2 small sips, letting the warm water sit in his mouth before swallowing. It barely touched his thirst, but it was enough to keep the panic at bay. He had to stay calm. Panic would make him sweat more, would cloud his judgment, would lead to mistakes. And out here, mistakes were fatal. The afternoon was giving way to early evening, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. Marcus knew he had perhaps 2 hours of daylight left, maybe 3. The thought of being out here after dark terrified him more than he wanted to admit. He'd heard the stories. Nighttime was when the big predators hunted, when the savannah transformed into a deadly arena where humans were decidedly not at the top of the food chain. He forced himself to keep moving, following what he hoped was a game trail through the grass. His mind wandered to his sister back in Chicago, who'd beg him not to take this trip alone. "You're 42 years old, and you've never been to Africa," she'd said. "At least go with a friend, or join a group tour." But Marcus had been stubborn, insisting he wanted the adventure, the freedom to explore at his own pace. Now her words echoed in his head with painful irony. The landscape began to change subtly. The grass grew taller here, reaching his waist in places, and clusters of thorny shrubs created natural barriers he had to navigate around. His progress slowed as he pushed through increasingly difficult terrain. The ground became rockier, dotted with volcanic stones that turned his ankles with almost every step. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the natural chorus of savannah. It was faint, almost lost beneath the whisper of wind through grass and the distant calls of birds. But it was distinctly human, a whimper, a cry of pain. Marcus froze, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. He turned slowly, trying to pinpoint the source of sound. It came again, slightly louder this time, from somewhere ahead and to his right, beyond a thick cluster of wait-a-bit thorns that formed a natural barrier. "Hello." His voice came out as a croak, his throat too dry for proper volume. He cleared it painfully and tried again. "Hello? Is someone there?" The whimpering stopped. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he heard words in a language he didn't understand, followed by what sounded like a child's sob. Every instinct told Marcus to be cautious. He was lost, vulnerable, and had no idea what he might be walking into. But the sound was unmistakably a child in distress, and his teacher's instinct, that fundamental need to help a kid in trouble, overrode his fear. He pushed through the thorny barrier, ignoring the way the branches grabbed at his clothes and skin. On the other side, in a small clearing surrounded by dense brush, he found her. She couldn't have been more than 12 or 13 years old, though her exact age was hard to determine. She wore traditional Maasai clothing. A bright red shukka wrapped around her small frame, now torn and stained with blood and dirt. Her head was adorned with intricate beadwork that had been partially pulled away, leaving colorful beads scattered in the dirt around her. Her face was contorted in pain, tears making clean tracks through the dust on her cheeks. What struck Marcus immediately was the injury. Her left leg was trapped beneath a fallen log, a piece of dead acacia, would probably knocked down by an elephant or storm. The girl had clearly tried to free herself. Her hands were raw and bleeding from the effort, but the log was too heavy and the position too awkward. Her trapped leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and Marcus's biology training told him it was likely broken. But worse than the broken leg were the thorns. In her struggle to escape, she'd rolled into a patch of wait-a-bit thorns and dozens of the vicious hook spines had embedded themselves in her arms, legs, and side. Each movement made her cry out as the thorns dug deeper into her flesh. "Oh, God!" Marcus breathed, dropping to his knees beside her. It's okay. I'm here to help." The girl's eyes, wide with pain and fear, fixed on him. She said something in what Marcus assumed was Ma, the Maasai language, her voice urgent and frightened. When he didn't respond, she tried again in broken Swahili, but Marcus knew only a handful of tourist phrases, none of them useful in this situation. "I don't understand," he said gently, holding his hands up at what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace and help. "But I'm going to get you out of here, okay? I promise." The girl watched him with a mixture of hope and terror. Marcus could see she was in shock, her body trembling despite the heat. Her lips were dry and cracked. She'd been here for hours, he realized, maybe since morning, without water, without help, slowly dying in the merciless African sun. His hand moved automatically to his water bottle, the last precious ounces that represented his own survival. The rational part of his brain screamed at him to save it, that he needed it more than ever if he was going to save both of them. But looking at this child's face, seeing the desperate hope in her eyes, Marcus knew he couldn't do anything else. He unscrewed the cap and held the bottle to her lips. "Here," he said softly, "drink." The girl's eyes widened, and she drank greedily, gulping down every last drop of the warm water. When the bottle was empty, she looked at him with an expression Marcus would never forget, a mixture of gratitude, confusion, and something else. Recognition, perhaps, that the stranger had just given her his own lifeline. Marcus tossed the empty bottle aside and turned his attention to her situation. The sun was getting lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He had maybe 90 minutes of daylight left, and he needed to free this girl and find help before darkness fell. He assessed the log carefully. It was substantial, probably weighing several 100 pounds, but if he could find the right leverage point. He looked around for something to use as a fulcrum, his mind racing through half-remembered physics lessons about levers and mechanical advantage. The girl said something else, her voice urgent, pointing back the way he'd come. Marcus followed her gesture, but saw nothing except endless grass and scattered trees. Then he heard it, a distant sound that made his blood run cold. The deep, rhythmic beating of drums, coming from somewhere beyond the horizon. The girl heard it too. Her expression changed from fear to something else. Hope, maybe. or recognition. She spoke rapidly, pointing again toward the sound, her voice rising with urgency. Marcus had no idea what the drums meant, but he knew he was running out of time. The sun was setting, the girl was badly injured, and he'd just given away his last water. As he positioned himself to try lifting the log, he couldn't help but wonder if his act of compassion had just sealed both their fates. The drums continued to echo across the savannah, growing steadily louder. Marcus gripped the fallen acacia log, feeling rough bark bite into his raw palms. The ancient wood was heavy as stone. He lifted with everything he had, dehydrated muscles screaming in protest. The log shifted an inch. The girl cried out, try and pull free, but her broken leg wouldn't cooperate. Marcus lowered it carefully, gasping, spots dancing in his vision. Different approach, he muttered. 10 feet away, wedged between rocks, he spotted a straight branch. A lever. His physics students would be proud. Marcus stumbled to retrieve it, his thoughts moving through molasses, hands trembling. Giving away that water had cost him dearly. He positioned the branch under the log, using a rock as fulcrum. On 3, he said. 1, 2, 3. The lever worked. The log rose, and the girl dragged herself backward with desperate strength. Her scream of pain cut through Marcus like a knife, but he held the lever down until she was clear. The log crashed down. Marcus collapsed, chest heaving. The girl lay curled around her injured leg, sobbing with pain and relief. The sun touched the horizon, painting clouds crimson and purple. The drums had stopped. Eerie silence settled over savannah, more unsettling than the drums. The girl tried standing but collapsed immediately. Her leg was definitely broken. Marcus's mind raced through impossible options. Carry her while barely standing himself, leave her alone as darkness fell, or stay without water. Then he heard voices. Many voices, coming from multiple directions. Rhythmic pounding like dozens of feet in unison. The girl's head snapped up. She called out, her voice cracking but carrying surprising force. An answer came back, male, deep, coordinated. Her face transformed, fear replaced by profound relief. I don't understand, Marcus said, his own fear rising. They came over to rise like an ancient army, stealing his breath. Maasai warriors, dozens and hundreds, emerged in the grass like crimson ghosts. They wore traditional shukas in brilliant reds and blues, bodies adorned with intricate beadwork. Many carried long spears with wicked points. Others held rungas and painted shields. Their faces frightened Marcus most. Stone expressions, hard eyes. These were Morans, warriors living by ancient traditions, protectors of their people. And they were surrounding him. Marcus scrambled up, hands raised. I helped her. She was trapped. I gave her water. More warriors appeared until Marcus was surrounded by hundreds. They formed a tightening circle, spears ready, moving with precise coordination. The girl called out, gesturing toward Marcus and her leg. Warriors responded with sharp questions, but their attention remained fixed on him. One warrior stepped forward, taller, bearing authority, face weathered and scarred. His elaborate beadwork, an elder staff marked him as a leader. Marcus would learn his name was Lecup. Lecup's hawk-sharp eyes studied the scene. Fallen log, torn thorn bush, injuries, empty water bottle. Marcus's sunburned, exhausted condition. He spoke in Ma, incomprehensible but clearly demanding answers. I don't understand. I speak only English. I'm lost. I found her trapped. I helped her. Please, she needs medical attention. Lecup directed words at the girl. She responded urgently, gesturing repeatedly toward Marcus, the water bottle, her leg. As she spoke, some warriors' expressions softened. Others grew more hostile, grips tightening on spears. Heavy silence fell. Then warriors argued loudly until Lecup raised a staff, commanding instant quiet. For warriors moved the girl, surprisingly gentle, assessing injuries with practiced hands. One gave her water. Another examined her broken leg knowledgeably, beginning to splint it with leather and branches. But the circle around Marcus tightened. 2 warriors moved behind him, close enough to feel their heat. A younger warrior with elaborate beadwork stepped forward, speaking accented English. "I am Kipkoek." Lekip O Niku asks, "Why is a white man alone with his daughter in the wilderness? Why is she injured? Why did you take her?" "Take her?" Marcus's voice rose. "No, I found her trapped. I was lost from my safari group. I heard her crying. I freed her. I gave her my water." Kip Koek's translation didn't ease the skepticism. His daughter disappeared this morning during a lion attack. The entire community has been searching. Now we find her injured with a stranger, a white man, alone, miles from anywhere. Marcus fought to keep his voice steady. "I'm just a lost tourist, a teacher from Chicago. I have my passport. I got separated from my group and found his daughter trapped. I couldn't just leave her." Kip Koek translated. Lekip responded at length, voice hard. When Kip Koek turned back, his words sent ice through Marcus's veins. Lekip says years ago, a white man befriended families, gained trust. Then 3 children disappeared, never found. There are 500 warriors here. They searched all day for this girl. They're tired, worried, and angry. They find you with her, alone, while she's hurt and cannot run. Some believe your story. Many don't. Lekip hasn't decided. Marcus felt 500 pairs of eyes, 500 spears ready. The sun bathed the savannah in final red light. He stood at a crossroads between life and death, his fate resting on a frightened girl's words and a warrior elder's judgment. What happens now? Now we wait to hear what Lekip's daughter says when she's treated, has water and food, when shock passes and her mind is clear. We wait to see if your safari company reports you missing. And if you decide I'm not who I say... Kip Koek smiled without warmth. Then the savannah will have one more mystery that no one ever solves. They made camp as darkness fell completely over savannah, transforming the golden grasslands into a mysterious realm of shadows and starlight. The Maasai moved with practiced efficiency, building several small fires in a defensive perimeter and erecting temporary shelters using branches and sheets of traditional bark cloth. The firelight cast dancing shadows across the faces of the warriors, making their ochre-painted features look like ancient masks. Marcus sat on the ground near the largest fire, surrounded by 6 guards who never let him out of their sight. His hands weren't bound. That seemed to be a courtesy, but the message was clear. He was a prisoner until proven otherwise. Every muscle in his body ached from exhaustion and dehydration, and his head pounded with the rhythm of his pulse. When one of the warriors offered him water, he drunk 3 full leather pouches without stopping, the liquid hitting his system like a drug. 20 feet away, under a carefully constructed shelter, the girl, Nalangu, he'd learned her name was being tended by what appeared to be a traditional healer. The old man worked by firelight, setting her broken leg with skill that seemed almost surgical. The girl cried out several times during the procedure, the sound cutting through Marcus like a blade. But when it was finished, she seemed to be resting more comfortably. Other women had appeared from the darkness, mothers, aunts, sisters, and they surrounded Nalangu with protective care, speaking to her in soft, soothing voices. Marcus watched all of this with a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief that the girl was getting proper care, anxiety because his fate still hung in the balance. He could feel the weight of judgment from every direction. Some warriors watching with open hostility, others with curiosity, still others with something that might have been sympathy. Lekip O Niku, the warrior elder, sat on the opposite side of the fire, his face unreadable in the flickering light. He had been in deep consultation with other senior warriors for the past hour, their discussion animated but controlled. Occasionally, one of them would glance at Marcus, their expressions offering no clues to his fate. Kip Koek, the English-speaking warrior, was part of that group, translating what appeared to be Marcus's passport information that someone had taken from his pocket. The night sounds of savannah rose around them. The cough of a leopard in the distance, the whooping calls of hyenas, the constant chorus of crickets and night birds. Each sound reminded Marcus of exactly how dangerous this place was, how dependent he had become on the very people who were deciding whether he lived or died. A warrior approached with a bowl of what looked like pasho, a thick maize porridge, and a piece of roasted goat meat. Marcus's stomach growled despite his anxiety. and he ate gratefully. The food was simple but substantial, and he felt some strength returning to his body with each bite. The warrior who brought it, a younger man, maybe in his 20s, watched him eat with an expression of careful neutrality. "Thank you," Marcus said, not knowing if the man understood English but needing to say it anyway. The warrior nodded slightly, a gesture that might have meant "you're welcome" or "just eat," then returned to his position in the guard circle. Time passed slowly. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks spiraling into the black sky where the Milky Way stretched in a brilliant band that Marcus had never seen so clearly from light-polluted Chicago. Under different circumstances, this would have been beautiful, magical, even the authentic African experience he'd been seeking. Instead, it felt like waiting for a verdict in the most consequential trial of his life. Movement from Nalengu's shelter caught his attention. Lekeup had risen and was walking toward his daughter, his staff clicking against stones with each step. The girl had been sleeping, her exhaustion finally overwhelming the pain medication the healer had given her, but now she stirred as her father approached. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the change in Lekup's demeanor, the stern warrior elder transforming into a worried father, his face softening with relief and love. Father and daughter spoke for a long time, their voices too quiet for Marcus to hear, even if he could have understood the language. Lekup knelt beside her, occasionally touching her face with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his warrior bearing. Other elders joined them, and the conversation expanded. Marcus could see Nalengu gesturing toward him several times, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. The elders listened carefully, some asking questions, others simply nodding. Kipkoek eventually broke away from the group and approached Marcus. The young warrior's expression was difficult to read in the firelight. Not as hostile as before, but not friendly either. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who knows his worth and his place in the world. "Stand up," Kipkoek said. Marcus's heart rate spiked, but he stood on shaky legs. Two guards moved closer, their spears ready but not threatening. "Not yet, anyway." Kipkoek studied him for a moment, then said, "Nalengu has told her story in detail. She says that this morning, before the sun was high, she was herding goats near the acacia forest with her sister and two other girls. A pride of lions attacked. They ran. In the chaos, she became separated from the others. She ran until she could not hear the lions anymore, but then she was lost. She tried to find her way back, but only went deeper into the wilderness." Marcus listened intently, trying to read between the lines of what he was being told. Kipkoek continued. "She says she was thirsty and tired. She saw a fruit high in a tree and tried to climb for it. The branch broke. She fell into the thorn bush and under the log. She struggled for hours but could not escape. She thought she would die there, that the hyenas or leopards would find her first." He paused. "Then you came." "I heard her crying," Marcus said. "I couldn't just walk past. She says you looked very sick, like the sun had taken your strength. She saw you had only a little water in your bottle. She says you gave her all of it, every drop, even though you need it yourself." Marcus nodded slowly. "She needed it more than I did. She's a child." Kipkoek translated this to Lekup, who had approached during the conversation. The elder's eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that felt like being x-rayed. When Kipkoek finished translating, Lekup spoke at length, his deep voice carrying clear authority. Lekup says, Kipkoek began, that he has spoken with his daughter, with the other elders, and with the warriors who know the area where you say you were lost. The safari company was contacted by radio. They confirmed that a tourist named Marcus Chun was reported missing this afternoon from a group at OLK Jirongai watering hole. They are sending guides to collect you tomorrow morning. Relief washed over Marcus like a physical wave, making his knees weak. "So you believe me?" "Lekup believes his daughter," Kipkoek corrected. "She says you freed her from a log. She says you pulled thorns from her skin, even though your hands were shaking with weakness. She says when the sun was hottest and she was crying, you used your shirt to give her shade, even though it made you burn more." He paused, something like approval in his voice. "She says you behave with honor, like a warrior should, putting the weak before yourself." Marcus felt something tight in his chest began to loosen. I just did what anyone should do. No, Lekeup said, and Marcus was startled to hear him speak English, heavily accented but clear. Not what anyone does. What a man of character does. He stepped closer, and Marcus could see the firelight reflecting in his eyes. Many would have kept the water. Many would have left a Maasai child to save themselves. You did not. I'm a teacher, Marcus said simply. I've spent 20 years working with kids. I couldn't. His voice cracked, exhaustion and emotion finally breaking through. I couldn't just leave her. Lekeup was silent for a long moment, studying Marcus with those piercing eyes. Then he spoke again, this time in Ma, and Kipkoek translated. Lekeup says that many years ago, his first wife was bitten by a snake while collecting firewood. White missionaries from the medical camp came in their truck. Though it was dangerous to travel at night, they gave her medicine that saved her life. He says he has never forgotten that not all outsiders are enemies, even though some have given reason to be cautious. The elder warrior continued speaking, and Marcus could hear the weight of memory in his voice. Kipkoek translated. He says that when his daughter was missing, he feared the worst. Every father knows his fear. When the warriors found you with her, some wanted immediate justice. Some saw only a white stranger with an injured Maasai child and assumed the worst. But Lekeup has lived long enough to know that assumptions can be as dangerous as lions. Lekeup switched back to his limited English, apparently wanting Marcus to hear this directly. You give water. Water is life. You give life to my daughter. He placed his hand on his chest. Maasai did not forget such debts. Marcus didn't know what to say. The relief, the exhaustion, the emotional weight of the entire experience suddenly crashed over him. He felt his eyes burning with tears he was too tired to hold back. I'm just glad she's okay. That's all that matters. Something changed in Lekeup's expression, a softening, a recognition of shared humanity that transcended culture and language. He spoke to the warriors surrounding Marcus, his voice carrying clear command. The guards stepped back, their spears lowering. The circle of suspicion dissolved. You are no longer a prisoner, Kipkoek said. You are a guest of Lekeup's family, under his protection, until your people come for you. One of the warriors brought Marcus a blanket. Another added wood to the fire near where he'd been sitting. The entire atmosphere of the camp seemed to shift, the tension that had been thick as smoke dissipating into the night air. Warriors who had been watching him with hostility now offered nods of acknowledgement as they passed. Several smiled. An older woman, Marcus would learn she was Lekeup's second wife and the Langu's mother, approached with more food and a wooden cup containing something warm and fragrant. She spoke rapidly in Ma, her voice thick with emotion, and though Marcus couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear: gratitude, relief, blessing. She pressed the cup into his hands, and when he drank, the liquid was sweet and slightly fermented, warming him from the inside out. Mursik, Kipkoek explained, sitting down across the fire from Marcus. Traditional drink, made from fermented milk, blood, and herbs. She gives you the ceremonial portion, what we offer to honored guests and heroes. I'm not a hero, Marcus protested. You gave your last water to a dying child, Kipkoek interrupted. In the savannah, where water is life itself, this is the ultimate sacrifice. You may not think yourself a hero, but here, among my people, this is exactly what a hero does. They sat in companionable silence for a while, Marcus sipping the Mursik and feeling warmth and strength gradually returning to his body. The sounds of the camp continued around them. Quiet conversations, the stamp of cattle being secured for the night, children's laughter from the direction of the shelters. Gradually, Marcus became aware that the warriors were sharing his story among themselves, Kipkoek's translation spreading through the camp in Ma. He could hear his name mentioned, could see people glancing his way with expressions that ranged from respect to curiosity. What happens now? Marcus asked eventually. Now you rest. Tomorrow, your safari people come with their trucks and take you back to your comfortable lodge, where you will shower and eat proper food and sleep in a soft bed. Kipkoek smiled. And you will have a story to tell that very few outsiders can claim. You have been judged by 500 Maasai warriors and found worthy. I was terrified, Marcus admitted, When I saw all of you coming over that rise, weapons ready, surrounding me, I thought I was going to die. Some of us wanted you to. Kipkoek said honestly, not everyone trusts easily, especially with our children. We have seen too many bad things from outsiders. But Lekyup is wise. He knows that judging too quickly, without seeking truth, makes us no better than those who have wronged us. Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of that wisdom. How is Nalangu? Really, the leg will heal. It was a clean break, and our healer, Olanana, has set many broken bones. She will walk normally again, though it will take time. The thorns were removed, the wounds cleaned and treated with traditional medicines. She will have scars, but scars are not shameful among Maasai. They tell stories. Kipkoek looked into the fire. She was very brave. She did not cry out more than necessary when Olanana set the bone. Her father is proud. She's a tough kid, Marcus said, thinking of his own students back home, wondering if they would have her strength in a similar situation. She's going to be telling this story for the rest of her life. As will you, Kipkoek observed. They fell into silence again, and Marcus found himself looking up at the stars, brilliant in the unpolluted African sky. He thought about how this day had started, with him boarding a safari vehicle, camera ready, seeking adventure and the perfect photograph. He thought about the sequence of simple choices that had led him here, wandering too far, losing the group, refusing to give up, hearing a child's cry, choosing to help rather than preserve himself. Lekyup approached again, this time accompanied by 2 other elders and several senior warriors. They moved with formal purpose, and Marcus instinctively stood, sensing this was important. The warrior elder spoke at length, his voice carrying the weight of ceremony. Kipkoek translated. Lekyup Ol Niku says that you, Marcus Chun, have demonstrated the qualities that Maasai respect. Courage, selflessness, and honor. He says that his daughter's life was saved by your actions, and that this creates a bond between your family and his family. He says that from this night forward, you are considered a friend of his Nkong, his community, and that you will always be welcome here. The other elders nodded in agreement, and several warriors struck their spears against their shields in what sounded like approval. Lekyup pulled something from around his neck, a necklace made of intricate beadwork in red, white, and blue patterns. He stepped forward and placed it over Marcus's head. The beads were warm from Lekyup's body heat, and they settled against Marcus's chest with surprising weight. This is given to warriors who have proven themselves worthy, Kipkoek explained. It is not given lightly. Lekyup has worn this since his first lion hunt, when he was 18 years old. He passes it to you now as a symbol of respect and gratitude. As long as you wear this, any Maasai who sees it will know you are under the protection of Lekyup's family. Marcus looked down at the necklace, his throat tight with emotion. I don't know what to say. This is too much. It is exactly enough, Lekyup said in English. You give life. I give respect. It is balance. The elder gripped Marcus's shoulders in what seemed to be a traditional gesture of acceptance, then spoke again in Ma. The warriors around them began to chant, a low, rhythmic sound that seemed to resonate from deep in their chests. It grew in volume and complexity, multiple harmonies weaving together, and Marcus realized he was hearing a traditional warrior song, and that it was being sung in his honor. As the chanting continued, more warriors joined in, and then women's voices added a higher layer of harmony. Children emerged from the shelters to watch, their eyes wide with the excitement of ceremony. The fire seemed to burn brighter, the stars seemed closer, and Marcus found himself caught in a moment that felt both intensely real and dreamlike. When the song ended, the camp gradually settled back into its nighttime routine. But the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Marcus was no longer a suspect, no longer an outsider under guard. He was a guest, a friend, someone who had earned his place by the fire through action rather than words. As Marcus finally lay down on the blanket that had been provided, exhaustion pulling him towards sleep, he could hear the night sounds of savannah mixing with the quiet conversations of the camp. He touched the beaded necklace at his chest, feeling the pattern of the beads under his fingers, and thought about how a single choice, to help a child in need, had transformed him from a lost tourist into an honored friend of one of Africa's most legendary peoples. His last thought before sleep claimed him was a Nalengu, resting peacefully under a shelter, alive and healing. Everything else, the fear, the exhaustion, the danger, faded in comparison to that simple, profound truth. He had given his last water to a hurt child, and in doing so, had found something more valuable than he'd ever imagined seeking, a place of honor among people who valued honor above all else. Tomorrow, he would return to his comfortable world. But tonight, he belonged here, under the African stars, surrounded by 500 warriors who had judged him and found him worthy. Dawn broke over savannah with pink and gold light, as Marcus woke to cattle lowing and children laughing. His body ached, but the beaded necklace around his neck confirmed the previous night hadn't been a dream. He'd been transformed from prisoner to honored guest. Kip Koek brought breakfast. Your safari company arrives in 2 hours. Nalanga wants to thank you herself. At her shelter, the girl looked small but determined, her leg expertly splinted. Through Kip Koek's translation, she explained how she prayed for help when trapped, never expecting it to come from a dying stranger who gave his last water. She says you put your shirt over her face for shade, even though it burned you more, Kip Koek translated, his voice thick with emotion. She says you will always be her brother, bound by honor and sacrifice. Marcus squeezed her hands. And she will always be my sister. The next hour blurred with activity. Warriors demonstrated their jumping dance. Children asked curious questions, and Elder Oladatai requested Marcus share his story. Sitting by the fire, Marcus spoke about Chicago, teaching, losing his wife to cancer, and why he'd come to Africa seeking meaning. When I saw Nalanga trapped, I didn't see a stranger. I saw a child who needed help. That's all that mattered. Oladatai responded, "A man who dedicates his life to nurturing children understands what truly matters. Your heart speaks a universal language." The Land Rovers arrived, Safari Guide and Operations Manager David Kaprotic, shocked to find Marcus wearing warrior beadwork, clearly an honored guest. Lekup explained everything, and David's expression shifted to awe. You save his daughter at risk to your own life. That's something many spend years trying to earn, acceptance by a traditional Maasai community. Lekup addressed Marcus in careful English. You go now, but you have place here always. You come back, you are family. This is promise. The farewell was emotional. Warriors clasped his hand. Women brought gifts. Children sang. Nalangu placed a necklace she'd made around his neck. So you remember your brother, she said in determined English. Lekup embraced him. May you always walk with the courage you showed in the savannah. You have proven that good men exist in all nations. As the vehicles pulled away, warriors stood with spears raised in salute. During the drive back, David recorded the story. Most tourists see Africa's face. You saw its heart. That evening at the lodge, Marcus decided this wouldn't be his last visit. He began drafting an email about a student exchange program, touching the beaded necklaces at his chest. He'd come seeking adventure and escape from grief. He was leaving as a brother to Nalengu, a friend to warriors, a man who'd rediscovered purpose. Surrounded by 500 warriors who could have killed him, Marcus had found what he'd lost when his wife died, proof that one person's compassion could ripple outward unpredictably. He'd given his last water to a hurt Maasai girl. In return, he'd been welcomed into a family and reminded that humanity's greatest strength is compassion across all boundaries. The sun painted the sky red and gold. Tomorrow he'd return to Chicago, to his classroom and students. But part of him would always remain in the golden grasslands of Kenya, where he'd learned that honor, courage, and compassion speak a universal language. And somewhere in the savannah, a girl with a healing leg told everyone about her brother, the lost American who gave his last water and found his way home.